Hi, and Alvaro. I'm very happy to be with you tonight. Um, Tonight, well, I'm very excited about this interview. Before I introduce our guest, I would like to thank everyone who's listening in the US, in Canada, in Latin America, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia. We have some people in Australia listening as well. And our guest tonight is Robert J. Ott. He's a man that went from being totally sighted to losing his sight in a matter of hours. I have read and I have also listened to many interviews that he has done on TV and on radio. And for me, it's a great pleasure to have him on. And I have to say, I have done a lot of interviews, as you know, with people from all over the world who had in common that they had a visual impairment from the beginning. They had any kind of eye condition, and so it was a progressive problem for them. But in the case of Robert, it's totally different. And so I think it's going to be a very inspiring interview for people to listen and to understand what life is all about, which is always something very important for me to give us a message. If I do this show, it's because I want to raise awareness about the visually impaired and blind in a positive way. I think that we all go through a lot, but it's the way we react and overcome the obstacles that we are faced with that make us who we are. And when I heard the story about Robert, I said, I have to interview this person, and so I'm very happy to say hello to you, Robert.
The same back to you. It's a pleasure to be interviewed, and I'm looking forward.
Thank you, Robert. And my first question would be, how old are you?
I am 43 years old.
When you had this changing experience that we're going to talk about tonight, how old were you?
I was 21 years old.
Wow.
The experience happened October 6, 1990. I was 21 years of age at that time.
So, Robert, what can you remember of that day?
On that particular day, it was the fall season. I was living in the state of New Jersey in USA. And during the fall, the leaves come down from the trees, the orange and yellow leaves. And I remember myself looking out the window of my dojang. For those of you who do not know what a dojang is a martial arts school. I was the owner of a martial arts school, and I was by myself in the dojang, and I just ended my personal training because I was getting ready to go to Michigan to compete and test for a new rank. And I remember staring out the window as cars passed by on the main road. As I left there, I remember locking the door to my school, and many things were going through my mind. Many things. I was dealing with a relationship that had many questions to it. I was struggling to find out if I can financially keep the school running. There were so many things happening in my mind as a young man of 21 years of age. Nevertheless, I went home and I picked up a good friend of mine on the way home, and we ended up that evening going to visit a good friend who was managing a bar. This good friend was actually my father. My father was managing a bar, and we went to go visit him. And it was seemed to be a peaceful evening, relaxing, and I had just arrived at the bar, and I had been at the bar for no more than 15 minutes, and everything seemed to be going well. And that is when some big changes began to happen. A larger group of people had arrived, and they were already intoxicated, and they most likely should have not been allowed in the bar. Nevertheless, they came into the bar. They were allowed in the bar. And I was talking to a female friend of mine when one of them came up behind her and tried to approach her and physically touch her. She then came close to me and let him know that she is with me. At that point in time, she walked away towards the back. I, of course, picked up my jacket and I turned to walk towards the back as well. Before I did that, however, I looked him eye to eye and I said, "My friend, you have had a little bit too much to drink." That is when I turned and started walking the other way. And as I was walking the other way, he came up behind me and pushed me. That is when it all began. It seemed like everything was just happening in pieces, yet flowing and moving fast. My father began to push me out the door, letting me know that I'm going to be able to defend myself and take care of this guy. The doorman who worked there was escorting the other guy out the door. And all of a sudden I realized I am being put into a situation where I need to fight this individual. In being a martial artist, we try to avoid those situations. I remember we walked through the first door and into the small room that is the foyer. And it was at that time I made a decision that I wanted to utilize the foyer, small areas of the walls, as a means of assistance for me in defending myself. So at that point in time, I broke free, and the other guy broke free, and the fight began. When you go through a traumatic head injury, such as what I'm going to share with you, you have little bits and pieces that you remember in the couple minutes prior to when it happened. I can share to you that I remember fists flying. I can share to you that I remember my leg going between his two legs, and I pushed him from the top by his neck and swept his legs from underneath of him as he fell down onto the ground. I remember me dropping hard on top of him and continuing to strike him. The next thing I remember is I was tucking my shirt in, and the friend that came to the bar with me was standing in front of me, and we were standing in the foyer, and I was tucking my shirt in. It was over and done, and I was breathing heavy. It was at this point in time, the door cracked open, and the man that I apparently had this fight with went out to his car and obtained a gun and came back, cracked open the door, and put the gun to my head and pulled the trigger. That is when my life changed on October 6, 1990.
Robert, it's a very powerful story. I feel like listening to a movie, but sadly it's reality. Before we continue, there's something in my mind because I was watching today precisely a documentary about being able to print guns in 3D printers. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but this is something very new going on. My question to you, now that the guns debate is all over the United States, do you consider that what happened to you was simply, fate, but or you have sometimes the thought, I wish we didn't have so many guns in America, or you think it doesn't have anything to do with that?
I have a few different things. I certainly feel that what happened was certainly a plan, a purpose, a fate for me. And I share that thought process with you only because of all that my life has been about following that incident. However, I will also say that I certainly believe in the rights of the American people having the right to bear arms. I believe in that. I do, however, wish that we could get control of where these arms are made and how they are obtained by people who cannot even be responsible to be an American citizen who pays taxes and works hard. Guns are so easily available to people who have no responsibility that, in my mind, that's our problem right there. A lot of people say it's not the gun's fault. It's not the gun's fault. It's the person who pulled the trigger. I think that is a very good line and very good. But the fact of the matter is, we are humans. Humans are one thing. They are progress, not perfection. We are progress, not perfection. Humans who have something in their hand for the time that we have come to exist, experiment. Not everybody has the discipline, the mind over matter, to be able to control themselves with a powerful tool such as a gun. There are people who just do not have the discipline and the responsibility to be able to own and have one of these items. And I wish that we could get control of how that is issued to just any certain person. And it seems like it always is after children are killed or a big politician of ours is shot in the head or somebody's life is affected by a bullet that we decide to discuss this. It's amazing how in life a stop sign is not put up until the child gets hit walking across the street. We wait until horrific things happen before we take any action. So, when many years ago, rights came to be of us being able to have a gun, when that came to be, we must remember that was many, many, many years ago. Today, the world is much different. Today, we have lost a lot of respect, our etiquette, our discipline, our work ethics. We have lost a lot of our understanding of what the dollar bill is, how hard to earn it. People are lazy. And the matter is, kids do these days play games all day on the computers with guns on the games. So it is something that really is watered, and it is a seed in soil, watered, and the sun is beaming down on it, and it's a plant that's growing, and we are allowing that to happen.
I think your point is very, very good. Very interesting conversation, Robert. My next question is something that I suppose is in every person's mind right now listening to the show, and is all the people I have interviewed, all the listeners in general that I have, were born blind or they had an eye condition that was developing, and they have been losing their sight progressively. So they understand, and it's my case also. I have retinitis pigmentosa, and I have been losing my sight over the years, so I have been able to deal with that process. For you, suddenly losing your sight after such a terrible event, which is also super dramatic. How did you react, and how was your following days, weeks, and months?
Well, the fact of the matter is the bullet entered the left temporal lobe of my brain, damaged the nerves to my left eye, destroyed my ability to taste and smell, and then exploded in my right eye. The damage done there had me in the hospital for several months. During that time in the hospital, my head was swollen. The beginning days of me being there, the doctors did not feel that I was going to survive. It was a nurse by the name of Fran Orth who came in on the next shift, who called Dr. Luis Cervantes, who came in and went to work on me. And what was interesting during that time is my blood pressure never changed. And the anesthesiologist was talking to my mother and said, "What does your son do for a living?" And she shared with him, he owns a martial arts school. And he says, "That makes a lot of sense. Amazingly enough, I've never seen this before, but his blood pressure has not changed since the traumatic injury to the head." After the first surgery was done, my brain was so swollen that I did not realize I was blind. It actually took me 2 months to realize I'm blind. Following the first surgery, I then a month later caught what is called meningitis. There's many different types of meningitis, and of course, that is what I caught. It took them a week to decide what type of meningitis it is, and then they had to open my skull from the left side to the right side, down to my stomach, pull tissue out from my stomach, realign my brain, and put the tissue where the wound is. At that point in time, I woke up again, still not realizing I'm blind. And when I was released from the hospital and came back home and laid there on the bed, very weak, I was laying there and my mother came in, and it was during that time that I was laying in my bed looking across the room at the picture of the woman in my life who I had spent time with, had a relationship with. Her picture was on the shelf, and I couldn't see her. And I said to my mother, I said, "Am I blind?" And my mother broke down crying and said, "Yes, you are." That is when I first found out that I was blind. There was hope, for I had set up an appointment at Wills Eye Hospital in Philadelphia, which is one of the best hospitals for the eyes in the world. It's the top 5 hospitals for the eyes. And I had an appointment there with a neuro-ophthalmologist, which at that time was a rather new position, a new title. When that day finally came, I prayed that there would be an answer. The appointment was 4 hours long, and finally he came in. He would check me, do this, do that, then he would leave the office, come back, do a few other things, leave, come back. Finally, after 4 hours, he came back in with his 2 assistants with him, and he said, "Robert, I'm sorry, there's nothing we're able to do for you. Being blind is going to be very difficult, but there's ways that you can learn how to walk with the cane, and there's ways you can learn, how to be free and independent." And as he was speaking, I just started breaking down crying. To go from 20/20 vision to complete blackness is a massive change in life for any man. The ability to go jogging and running to get in your car and roll the window down, feel the wind blowing, to be able to see a bird in the sky, to be able to see the beauty that surrounds you every day in life. It was all gone. And all because of a man who didn't even know me, a man who did not even know who I was as a person, a man who didn't realize that I'm actually a very nice person, and he would have probably enjoyed knowing me. But nevertheless, I was pushed into a situation for immediate gratification of showing off how I can defend myself. I paid the price by way of others wanting to show me off. It was very difficult.
Wow, yeah, I can imagine. For your family, how did they take it?
When a traumatic thing happens to an individual, that individual, in most cases, is not the only victim.
Right.
All of my family, all of my friends, all of my martial arts students, everybody was affected. It affected people from Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware. People from all over the country were sending mail, letters. It affected many, many people. No one could believe what had happened. People had so much hope. It was very difficult. And that in itself became just as challenging for me as myself accepting my blindness. Because here I am living with it and dealing with it. At the same time, others around me didn't know how to be the same friend they were before. They didn't know how to do things around me or be at peace. They had a very difficult time doing regular things with me because I wasn't me anymore. In their eyes, I was somebody different. And when it all came down to it, that old saying of words, you can count your friends on one hand, was certainly demonstrated once again. Few stood by my side and dealt with it, and others could not. And that was just as fine for me because I had to move forward and I had to deal with it.
You know, Robert, and for our listeners, this last comment reminds me when my sight was going downhill in the last few years that has been, and now I'm legally blind, how incredible it is that you find out who is your real friend and who is not. Those who are not abandon you, they disappear. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to understand. And I think that we possess now an ability like a sensor to know, who is good for our lives, something that decided don't have. But we seem to have that ability or that intuition, and we value people for what they really are inside, and so it's a different way of seeing things. And I would like to know, when these moments were going on in your life, what made you hope again and say, you know what, this still is Robert. Robert is not gone. This is the same Robert with a different situation, but it's the same person it always was.
There is three parts to that answer. There are three parts to that answer. One day, while I laid in bed, very weak, recovering from the injury, I heard a knock on the door. My mother came to the door, and then she came to the bedroom and said, "You have a visitor." And I asked who it was, And of course, it was my very first martial arts instructor, Richard M. Kenvin. And he came to me, and we sat out in the kitchen, and we talked, and we talked, and we talked, and we talked. He was very familiar with what happened, for it was on the news and in the newspaper. He was very aware of what had happened. And he shared to me that I need to put my uniform on and I need to go back to my school. And I said to him, I don't know how I can do that. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so ashamed. Look at me. What do I look like? It was very difficult. That day after he left, I laid in bed, and my mother came in and sat next to me. And I said, Mother, I don't know how I can go back to my school. I don't know how I can do it. I'm so happy Master Richard Kenvin came to visit me, but I don't know if I've got what it takes inside to go back to that school and have my students see me like this. And she said to me, she said, Robert, the more you lay in bed and give up on life, then the more the man who did this to you keeps winning. That was the first thing in my life that got me up out of bed and out the door and had me go to my school and face my life head on. That was the first thing. The second thing that came to be was when a counselor for the New Jersey State Commission of the Blind came to visit me. And this was 4 years after the injury had happened. And he said to me, he said, we have some employment for you that you may be interested in. And I was very happy to hear that because I want to get back on my feet again. And I could tell he was saying this with a tone of voice that was almost like it's a joke coming. He said to me, we've got a job offer for you in the Business Enterprise Program, but it's in Washington State. And he started laughing. For in the United States of America, New Jersey is on the East Coast and Washington State is in the Northwest on the coast overlooking the Pacific. Complete opposite side of the country. No way would some young, middle-aged, mid-20s young man, leave that house and go there. I was quiet when he said that. And then I looked at him with a serious face and I said, fly me out there. Let me find out if it's something I want to do or not. So, needless to say, he flew me out there. And I landed here in Washington State, spent a week, and I realized that I can get back on my feet again and develop my freedom and independence, and I will be able to take care of my family better than sitting home and doing nothing with my life. So I came back home. I kissed my mother, my father, my stepfather, my little brother, and my grandmother Dan, and I said, after Christmas, I'm going to get on the plane and I'm going to move my life to the Northwest. And that's what I did. I arrived out here February 1st, 1995. And I had 2 gym bags and $500 American dollars on me and nothing to lose. The third thing that gave me the will and spirit and what we call in martial arts the halang, which means flowering warrior inside, was a little girl. And it was after I did a seminar in the state of Idaho. I did a seminar where I taught blind people self-defense. And the little girl came up to me. She wandered through the gymnasium till she bumped into me and says, "Master Ott, I just want to thank you from my heart. You have given me more things in this seminar than any other person ever has in my life. You will help me grow up to be a woman who is independent, strong, and a person in life who will find vision." And I'll never forget that young little lady. I bent down and gave her a hug, and I wished her all the best. And I realized that huge thing I did, which had tons of people, I realized if it just heals and improves one person, then I win. Then we win. It is at that time in my life when I realized I am not a victim. I am a survivor.
Very well put. It makes you think a lot about many things, and I think that people who listen to the show are going to be rethinking their life and priorities in life. You know, when you listen to this kind of stories, people that may not have, the issues that you have, the issues that we have, maybe thinking there's something else in life than maybe I think about. That's why some of the listeners are sighted and they don't have any problem with their vision or anything, but they like to listen to this and they get something out of the people that I interview, which is very nice to hear. In order for you to get into the workforce, to be again a productive person there, how was that for you?
There was a lot of different steps. I had taken some college classes, which was very difficult because I began to realize at that point in time that my learning was no longer bringing it from what I see to my brain. Instead, it was me listening, bringing it from my ears to my brain. So it was a whole different method of learning. And I had to be very patient. Often I had to teach teachers how to teach me. So many times the teachers would write on the chalkboard 6, 7 times per class. I would have to say to them, "Could you please tell me what you wrote on the chalkboard?" It was hard work. None of it came on a silver platter. None of it came on a silver platter. One day, I had heard about the Business Enterprise Program, and it was based off the Randolph-Shepard Act that came about in the 1940s here in the United States. I decided to learn more about it, to meet people who had graduated, and it was at that time I decided I'm going to go that direction. Of course, I had to go through a two-week period of time to see if I was eligible to even become a student for the Business Enterprise Program. And I will never forget that 2-week period of time. They actually had me in a room downstairs in the basement, and they called it the Room of Arts and Craft. And I kept thinking in my mind, I'm trying to move on my life here. I'm a grown-up adult, and I've got this woman talking to me like I am a little child doing arts and crafts. She gave me this little animal. It was a dog. And the dog was made out of a clothes hanger and little pieces of knit, pieces of string tied all around it to give it color. And she said, "This is what you're going to do." My first thought is looking at her and telling her she's got some mental issues and needs help. But I decided not to do that. She said, "Here is the toughest thing that nobody's ever been able to do. I was already short-tempered, and the fact that I'm even having to do this. She handed me a hanger and said, "No one knows how to bend it, so it shapes like the dog." I grabbed the hanger from her, and in 5 seconds, bent it, so it shaped like the dog. The woman was basically, respected me in a way. I said, "I'll make a dog for you. But just remember, I am here to make a difference in my life. I am not here because of the woke me. I'm on." So I graduated that 2-week program and was easily accepted into the business enterprise program. Once I entered, it was a lot of hard work, took a lot of patience, a lot of training. And I graduated successfully. And from there, moved my life to the Northwest. And uncertain of where I'm or what's going to happen. The first business I opened up was called the Modern Day Cafe. And it did the food services for the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. It contained many scientists. There was about 900 people who worked in that federal government complex. I ran that cafe for 10 years. During that 10 years, I met a beautiful woman named Kimberly, who became my wife. It was during that 10 years that I realized I was a survivor, not a victim. It was during that 10 years I began to travel and share my story to others. It began during that time I became a father. It was all during that 10 years. At that point in time, we had a convention for the blind. And I met several consulting companies. And there was one consulting company that I really liked more than all the rest. They are called Cantu Services. And the whole concept was via the Randolph-Shepard Act that as a blind entrepreneur, I would be able to do the full food services at a military site. And right here in Washington State is what is called Joint Base Lewis McChord, a combination of an Army base and an Air Force base, third largest in the country. And I began to go after that. I had that passion. I had that lust. It took 3 years and a lot of hard work. But on September 1st, 2004, I walked into my office and I was the president CEO of a new business. This business was called Certain Victory Food Services Incorporated. I named it that because Certain Victory is what I lived by. It's my blindness. Certain Victory in Korean is the word called Pilsung, which often you may see that on my email. Certain Victory means strength and indomitable spirit. And I wanted all the soldiers that we fed to know that we care about them and the strength, the courage, and the indomitable spirit that is in this world will be there in their heart. And that is what the goal was in naming that business. It was following that I decided to write my book and title it Certain Victory, the story of a victim who turns into a survivor. And I share the story to others all over the country. When I first started the business, we had 833 employees. It was one of the biggest employment companies in the local regional area. Every newspaper you could imagine was knocking at my door to do an article. For a blind entrepreneur, obtaining a contract of that magnitude seemed just impossible to the eyes of many others. Needless to say, I'm on my second contract there. These are 5-year contracts. And during that time there, we've been awarded countless times. I've been asked to be a speaker for the Wounded Warriors many times, as well as the keynote speaker for Madigan Hospital, all 600 doctors and nurses. It has been an incredible thing to share to others that you are your best friend and you are your worst enemy. Many people remember that every pro has a con, but often we forget that every con has a pro. And I have taken the thing that has happened to me and changed my life on October 6, 1990, and turned it into something that can make a difference for others' lives. There are times I miss and wish.
Okay, we are in the second part of the interview, and I was going to ask Robert about how can people find the books you have written?
Well, my book is available on my website, which is www.certainvictory.com. Certain Victory is all lowercase, no space. My book is also available via Kindle and Nook. It is also available ebook and in an audio format narrated by a gentleman named Wayne June. Hardcover or softcover is still available.
Wonderful for our listeners to get that book. And I would like to go deep into martial arts. For our listeners, I was lucky enough to be able to practice a little bit of martial arts in New York City last year, and with someone who is also blind and has retinitis pigmentosa. And I feel that people in the visually impaired and blind community should go more into martial arts. I find it that is very, very important for us, and it gives us a lot of security, give us a lot of mental and physical strength. And I would like to hear your opinion about why is martial arts so good?
Often I share the definition of what martial arts is. And it is, in my mind, a physical, mental, and spiritual form of practice which will allow its students to find a deeper understanding of themselves and therefore a greater capacity towards achieving self-fulfillment. I base much of my martial arts from the traditions hundreds of years ago. I started off in Taekwondo, and in many ways it saved me. It brought me to go into a very good direction in my life. As the years went by, I continued on with Korean martial arts, but I decided I wanted more, much more. That's when I began to learn Hapkido, Kuksuruwan, Hallingdo. And during that study, I began to understand the most important thing, and that is the respect, appreciation, self-confidence, self-empowerment, personal empowerment. All that came from martial arts. Martial arts has helped me communicate when I do business. It has enabled me to speak in front of people with confidence. All that came from martial arts. So it was, without question, an art form that gave strength to my mind, my body, and it gave strength to items that go into my hands, extensions of my body. It enabled me to be able to find energy internally inside, which is often called the red field in English, or in Asian, they often call it your ki. I was able to find that key energy for my balance and my energy utilized to get through the challenging moments of life. I truly feel that if it was not for martial arts, I would not be alive today.
Can you tell us some of the major accomplishments that you have? Because not only you practice martial arts, you have been if I may say so, a very good one. So can you tell us, because I read in your website you have a lot of accomplishments that you have to be very proud of for our listeners. What are the kind of accomplishments you have had that you are like more proud of? I'm sure of all, but some that you say, wow, I didn't know I would be able to accomplish this.
I share it to you in a very humbled manner for the big picture. That is the big picture. But for those out there who want to understand how far an individual who was a victim, who turned into a survivor, and is completely blind can go in life, then I will share that with you without question. I was a New Jersey state champion 2 years in a row. I won the Fight for Cancer Championship and the Northeast Poconos Mountain Championships as well. That was during my competing days. Following that, after my blindness happened, I became well known throughout the country and received many different awards. Currently, right now, I have been on the cover of 3 different magazines that have shared my story. I am a Master of the Year award from Taekwondo Times Magazine. That is, Master of the Year award is out of thousands and thousands of other martial artists. I received Master of the Year award. In conjunction, I received Artist of the Year award from Martial Arts Association. And I also had the opportunity of training under one of the most well-known instructors in the world. His title is Doju Im. He's the founder. His name is Jihan Jae. And I currently hold a rank of 7th Dan. In Korean, it is Childan. In English, it means 7th degree black belt from this individual, and Grandmaster Kenneth P. McKenzie. I also hold the rank of an honorary 8th Dan black belt from a Korean Martial Arts Association located out of Korea.
Wow.
The titles I have here is I am the Northwest Director for Shinmu Hapkido. I am Washington State's National Korean Martial Arts Association Director, and I'm the founder of Kido Kwan, Hapkido. Kido Kwan is my own system that translates the family with the way of power. Because I feel in my life, if my family didn't give me the love, I would have never been able to find the power to overcome what has happened to me. So that is what I teach. In our system, I have shared to others how the blindness does not need to stop one being able to do martial arts. And in one of my cover page articles, I discussed the touch to touch, the black on black, and the certain victory. And those were the 3 principles that I shared to others on the cover page article. And it's been a very, it has definitely opened up a lot of eyes, should I say. I have also been the host of some of the largest Korean martial arts seminars in the world, where people come from all over the planet Earth, come and attend my events with other Grandmaster instructors who are also highly respected. So it has been certainly an honor. At the end of this month, I am going to be going to a large martial arts school. They have all joined under me to become a member under my organization. And then next month, at the end of the month, I'll be hosting another event with a gentleman from Australia, Grandmaster Jeff Booth. And it just continues on and on and on. The passion, the love, and the willingness spirit I have for martial arts. All of this done while I am a father of 2 children and feeding the 3rd largest military site in the country.
Wow. You know, Robert, I think it's obvious for people that you are a motivational speaker. You have the abilities to, in the background, to be one. My question is, how can people attend one of your events, of your motivation, of your, to feel, you know, your spirit? How is that possible?
Every human being has a mind and a body, and they have a heart and they have a spirit inside. And it takes that individual to reach in deep for what he or she wants in life. If you are waiting for it to come to you, you'll be waiting for a long time. You must have that salacious drive, that lust, that passion to go after what you want in life. There's more in life that I see now than I could ever see before when my eyes worked. That's because I look at the big picture, I look at the real picture. There's challenges I face each and every day, every moment. But someone must look at that. They must understand they can get through that and past that. There's an old saying about the wall. 2 things can happen when a person comes to face the wall. They can come to the wall, realize they can go no further, and turn around. Or they can go over that wall, under that wall, around that wall, or through that wall. One way or another, they can get to the other side. And that takes inner spirit, that's the indomitable spirit, that takes the core, the heart of the individual. And that is something that can never be given. That is something that must be found. I am easy to get a hold of. My website, to contact me. And I'm always there for any questions or information on my events. My next large event that I'll be hosting will be in 2014. My special guest instructor will be Dr. Grandmaster Hee-Young Kim, one of the most incredible writers in Korean martial arts in the world. Along with him will be Grandmaster Rudy Timmerman, Grandmaster Kenneth P. McKenzie, Chief Master Kevin Janice, and, of course, Master Daniel Sidsma. All these individuals are from all over the world coming to teach at my event here in Olympia, Washington.
Before you give us your contact information, my last question would be, you have been traveling all over. How do you feel if the perception of society, of the visually impaired and blind, and what do you think has to improve for us to have equality in society?
We cannot dwell on what we can teach society. We need to dwell on what we can teach ourselves and how we can be as an individual. My friends, my people, and the individuals that I associate with forget I am blind 80% of the time. It is often forgotten. My life is a regular life. I have regular responsibilities. I do regular things. Blind people need to understand that they are regular human beings as well. They must allow themselves to be a human being and respect themselves as a human being. They must learn to embrace themselves and who and what they are. When I go somewhere and I meet people and I shake their hand, whatever they get out of it, they get out of it, and that is good. The fact of the matter is, I am always traveling, and I just do not see enough blind people traveling as well. And I can only say, let's not work on how we can teach others. Let's work on what we can do to teach ourselves. We need to get out there in this world and be regular citizens, regular civilians, people who pay their bills, pay their taxes, and work themselves every day. Get out there and make a difference. Go to musical concerts, events, do regular things. That's what's important. That's what not only builds up your own self-esteem inside you as a person, but it educates the rest of the world. I remember the first blind man I met. He was in front of a store called Kmart, and he had an accordion. He was playing an accordion. I don't even think he knew how to play it. And he had a cup, and he had a hat over and these big, thick glasses. And he was a cup for people to give him money to feel sorry, sympathy for him, because he was blind. I do not have sympathy for blind people. I have empathy, but not sympathy. I will admit, blind people are like everyone else. Some do not have the spirit and certain victory inside it takes to make it, but many of them do. So it's important that that is understood.
Well, I think it's a wonderful message what you're saying, about improving ourselves, because sometimes it's easy to say, what can society do for us and for our listeners? Sometimes we forget. It depends on us to give them an example and a message to society. It has been really wonderful to have you on. So many things that we could even talk about, but I think our listeners get a great sense of who you are, what you have done, how your life experience that changed you gave you so much more than you had before this event happened to you. And that's what I take from this interview, really, the most. For the listeners that want to contact you, how is the easy way to get on hold on you?
The best way to get a hold of me is going to my website, which is www.certainvictory, CERTAINVICTORY.com. And there you can go to my email address. My email address individually is P as in Paul, I as in ice, L as in Lucy, S as in Sam, U as in umbrella, N as in Nancy, G as in ghost. Pilsung is the word. That is Korean for certain victory. And after Pilsung, at Comcast, C-O-M as in Mary, CAST.net. Pilsung at Comcast.net is my email address. And I check my email several times a day. I am a busy man, and I will get back to you without question. I want everybody to know, don't ever forget inside that blind or not, you can still look in the mirror. And in that mirror, you need to see you. See yourself. Love yourself. And be proud of who and what you are as a person. The wine glass is halfway full. And you must remember that you're only going to live life once. And if you live it right, once is surely enough. I thank you for being on your show.
My pleasure, Robert. Nothing else to say. Our listeners must be very upbeat after listening to the interview. Thank you so much, Robert, Matt, everybody there, for your kindness and your time. And for our listeners, this is what it's all about, So this is Alvaro from LBB Show saying good night.